It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No! Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner this.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three. Yes! She is gone! I don't believe what I just saw. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. You believe in miracles? Yes!
You may fire when ready.
What?
Good evening, Cubs and Cardinals fans. It's Thursday, December 3rd. The non-tender deadline passed yesterday, and come on, is there anything else that we can talk about besides the end of The Last Jedi? Ron's favorite player, soon to be a St. Louis Cardinal, and apparently the cause of much consternation in Cubs Nation. We'll get back into that, but we do want to welcome in a special guest tonight. We certainly couldn't do the show without him, particularly this week with news of the Cubs non-tenders leading the story in baseball. And there he is, former Team of Rivals co-host, Elliott Duy. Elliott, how are you feeling with all your free time now?
Oh, fantastic, Pete. It's just a weight off my shoulders right now.
Glad to hear it. Have you landed on your feet? Did our HR administrator get in touch with you about the complete lack of severance support that we'll be providing now that you're a free agent? You're a free agent just like Kyle Schwarber.
I am, and I'm hoping to go to the Yankees and smash next year.
Okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I got my 2 pennies worth of severance for the.
Wait, no,
two pennies.
You read it wrong. You owe us 2 pennies.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So
for all the time and the annoyances
exactly
of the various drinks and sump pumps and all the other background noise.
Are we good? We good?
And obviously, also joining us, I'm certainly looking forward with a bit of Schadenfreude about discussing the non-tender decisions. Ron, how you doing, buddy?
Really good. And boy, there all of a sudden, I don't know if there's ever been another day in the history of baseball in late November, December, where we've had so many unexpected, I guess, sort of expected, but really the reality doesn't set in until you start seeing non-tendered names just pile up one after another. I mean, you could probably make a Jesus Christ. There he goes. Elliott, you could make a pretty decent team off this list.
Yeah, there was a lot of guys that, I mean,
at least better than Pittsburgh, if that means anything. But you could make a serviceable major league team that I think would have a shot.
If there was an expansion year to have one, hey, this could be a good year for you.
Nashville should have arrived this year, right?
Exactly. So
maybe that's why Theo resigned after all. He wanted to be first in line to sign Kyle Schwarber to his team.
He wanted his new Lego set, of course. He's got to have one at least known piece.
So let's talk about it. I mean, he's leading everybody's list of the most surprising and most desirable non-tenders that were announced yesterday. Kyle Schwarber, no longer a member of the Chicago Cubs. Elliott, thoughts?
At first, I was kind of like, what? I mean, he's been such a, I don't know. I mean, the 2016 part of the Kyle Schwarber story is kind of what I think keeps fans just so locked in on him because it was such a good story, and it'll never be forgotten by any Cubs fan. But when you look at post 2016 and the expectations that the team had for him and fans, it's just, you didn't see that transition that we thought he was going to take, that we saw flashes of. So he'll land somewhere. I mean, he will be picked up. It'll be sad to see him in another uniform, but thinking about it after the fact, I think it makes sense for the Cubs. They really need to bring in some other players that can service left field and be more of a contact hitter. I mean, and the Cubs are broke, so they couldn't afford that minimum contract that he was probably going to get anyways.
And by minimum, you mean $8 million.
Yeah.
At a minimum.
Ron,
are you looking forward to having him patrolling left field and serving as your DH for the next 5 years?
There is only one joy I would. Well, it's funny because Jim Cromer and I did Two Birds on a Bat, Ruffled Feathers edition. We did it not normally on a Tuesday. We did it this afternoon, just over the lunch hour, and that subject did come up, and I'm kind of like, look, if they said that that's something that was going to happen, man, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, I'm not going to be sitting here doing backflips either. I mean, you guys know that there's. Well, here's the big unknown. Maybe we can talk about this later, but I just want to throw this in right now. There's a big unknown in the National League, and that's whether we're going to have a DH or not. That changes a lot of shit, and it's just so frustrating that at this point, this late in the offseason, and it's not that late, but look, these teams are getting ready to head into the winter meetings. A bunch of guys just hit the free agent market. It'd be really great if they could get their shit together and just make the decision. And I'm on the side of this argument, and I know there's a lot of purists out there that don't want to see it. But I tell you guys right now, you can run from it all you want. You can hide. The DH is coming to the National League, and it's going to start in 2022 after this next CBA. Why in the hell wait? Get it over with. Rip the Band-Aid off. Go to AA early. Just start the process. Let's just do it now. And with that said, look, I'm not going to be disappointed to see. I know he's got some. I know he's got some issues with his game, but he's got power. He's got a good OPS plus number. He's an above average offensive producer, okay? Depending on where you put him in the lineup. If you need a leadoff hitter, you're not signing Kyle Schwarber, okay? If you want him to bat fourth, if you want him to bat fifth, I know, but that's Joe Madden, right? But if you want him to bat fourth, fifth, somewhere in the middle of the order that can knock in runs, that's the guy you want. You can hide him out in a corner outfield position. You don't need him to be a Gold Glove defender. You need him to produce a few more runs than he's going to save with his glove. He's not going to make many highlight reels in a good way. Neither is Marcell Ozuna. Neither did Sammy Sosa. But we can put up with their shit because they were offensive producers, and that's the same way I feel. Rosario from Minnesota, who's non-tendered, Kyle Schwarber. I could go either way there. I like Rosario's game just a little bit better. He's a little bit higher batting average. Both of his on-base percentage sucks. But again, it all depends on where you need him in the lineup. I could go with either of those two guys. And those are just non-tenders. You still have a list of free agents that's on there that are a little intriguing to me. People think Yasiel Puig is icky. No, I wouldn't want that guy on a 10-year deal. But on a 1-year deal, yeah, you sign Yasiel Puig, he's your best outfielder all of a sudden if you're a Cardinals fan. He is. He's your best outfielder. Pending Dylan Carlson and his first full year. Okay? So I could go with any of these guys right now. Because the alternative for me is Dexter Fowler. It's Tyler O'Neill. It's Harrison Bader. That's not going to sell many tickets to the Nuttall family. So, yeah, I'll take any of them. And the silver lining, if we decided to go ahead, hey, we're going to bring in this former Cub, the Bambino. We're going to bring in this former Cub. The only silver lining for me is to see you two assholes melt down when he goes up to Chicago and he starts hitting some Last Jedi laser beams up there. I just want one. Just one would be worth it. And that's it. And then I'm I'm done with it. So yeah, it's an intriguing thought. But I don't, guys. Reality is, Kyle Schwarber, I think he's going to have some suitors. I think mainly from American League side, and he's going to end up with somebody, and he might do a pretty good job in what would be a walk year, essentially in 21. So I think he's going to be fine, but I don't think he's going to be in St. Louis. I actually don't think they're going to do anything like that. So,
I actually wonder if this is the first break from Theo's legacy, because I wonder if this is a move that is made if Theo is still in charge. If this was something that only Jed Hoyer could make because he wasn't so vocally a supporter of Kyle Schwarber. Theo said again and again and again how much he believed in Schwarber's tools. And I just, I was thinking about it today. Is this a move that Theo would have made? But honestly, what has surprised me most about this has been the reaction of Cubs fans to the non-tender, as though he was the best hitter on the Cubs team and that they now have no chance. And this team is unbelievably cheap because they let Kyle Schwarber go. And yet for the last 3 years, all I've heard is Cubs fans, and I've been among them, bitching about how broken this offense is. Well, if you want to fix this offense, it's going to have to take on a different look. And you can't continue to have these swing and miss hitters. So you need to make a choice. Who are you getting rid of? Because the guys who all profile the same, Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, well, actually less Anthony Rizzo because he actually knows how to put bat to ball when he's in that situation. But Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, Kyle Schwarber, to a certain extent, Jason Hayward, Wilson Contreras. All right, if you're not going to cut Kyle Schwarber, which one of those are you going to get rid of to diversify that offense? Because if you're so tied to all that, guys, we're just running it back out again this year, just like we did for the last 2 years.
And how do you think you're going to get any better?
And I hate this cliche, but in this case, it's absolutely true. You keep doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. You're nuts.
Yeah.
And I think that the reaction of Cubs fans right now to the non-tender of Kyle Schwarber is flat out nuts. He is not the second coming of Babe Ruth. He's not even the second coming of Anthony Rizzo.
He's not even the second coming of John Crook.
Get over it. And you know what? Bite the bullet. We kind of knew this year was going to suck. And yet still, even without Kyle Schwarber, Cubs still have a chance of winning this division because this division sucks.
That very, very, very true. Sam Smith, our buddy here, says Cubs bitching about a broke offense. Come on over, Pete. And I agree with him. That was what I was thinking when you were sitting there talking about it. You want to talk about a broke offense? Look no further than who finished behind you in the standings. We feel the pain, but you're right. Look, you can afford to have a guy like Schwarber. You can afford to have some of these feast or famine guys when they swing the bat. You can afford maybe one or two of them. If you have 3 or 4 other guys that solidly get on base, that know what the hell to do in a situation, you can afford to have a couple of those guys. If they're hitting 30-plus home runs, usually not a problem. The problem is when you have 5 or 6 of them, I mean, how boring is that shit to watch? And all you're relying on is that small chance that they center a ball, they get the angle they need, and it goes far enough. I'm sorry, but the home run for me, I'm just speaking about me, the home run for me has become today's slam dunk. I don't give a shit. I know you can all hit the ball 400, 500 feet. I know you can. Hey, 7-foot guy, I know you can dunk a ball. It's not that cool anymore. All right? So the home run has become that for me. I don't really care.
I think of one of the moments when Anthony Rizzo, I think to a certain extent, caught a lot of flack was the whole respect me broken bat single, right? Because he couldn't believe that they were pitching to him, that they should have pitched around him, and he got this broken bat single to left field and scored the run, right? And wins the game. But is there anybody else on the Cubs team as composed then and still as composed now who would do that, who would shorten up their swing, who would flare a ball into the opposite field in order to drive in a run? Kyle Schwarber would go down swinging. Javier Baez would go down swinging. There are not many players on the Cubs
there was
who would change their approach.
There was only one player who changed his approach at the plate this last year, and that was Ian Happ. Mm-hmm. Ian Happ was the only one who would do it. Everybody else kept the same approach the entire time. I mean, you had flashes of it from Baez, who would go the opposite way, but I don't even really think that was changing his approach and more or less hitting what he was given. So
I see some old Marine Corps names popping up. I see my grandma popping up.
Your grandma was in the Marine Corps?
what?
No, she was. I don't think so. Maybe she was. She doesn't talk about it. It
That's
was
one
wartime.
badass devil dog.
Yeah, it is. I see. I see my grandmother on there. That's. I don't know what she's doing up there. Actually, grandma, I would expect to see up this late. My dad being up this late once again to join the show early on is another thing. I don't know if he wandered out of the house and had his phone with him, and maybe he accidentally tuned in. But we have quite a crew, quite a discussion going on tonight, hearing about these Chicago woes. I think the Cardinal fans have come out of the woodwork. I haven't seen Yaki on here. Hopefully he's okay, and he wasn't like a major Schwarber fan and just doesn't want to talk about baseball tonight. But do Cubs win the 16 World Series without Schwarber's bat? That's a good question for you guys.
No.
Yeah, you know what?
I mean,
and the 06 Cardinals don't win their World Series without Scott Spezio's bat. To be honest with you. So you never know. Pete, keep wandering around this non-tender list. I mean, is there anything on there that you guys are that intrigues you? I mean, look, this is not an all-star roster here on the non-tender list. These are maybe some good players, maybe some players that needed a change of scenery. Obviously, I think what's obvious to everybody here tonight, right, is like if you didn't believe that baseball is experiencing some financial woes or businesses, their plans have been impacted. I think we all can see this right now that clearly they have.
Yeah, and to pretend like finances aren't a part of this is just ridiculous. And I think that's been kind of the thing that's frustrated me also is all these people giving the Cubs a hard time for running their business like a business. Why do you think that these players are able to get the tens of millions of dollars that they are? It's because this very much is a business. But the reason that they're able to is because you do have some shrewd businessmen at the top of the organizations, and they sometimes make unpopular but difficult decisions. And sometimes I think they're stupid decisions, but they have to make decisions with two eyes, right? They do have to try and put a winning team. Well, most of them, Baltimore accepted. Sorry, Al. Most of them try to put a winning team on the field.
Pirates.
But then they also have to operate with an eye on the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to do. And in a year like this year, where I guarantee you, and you can dispute it all you want, but every team in baseball lost money. And that's not why they get into this. They don't get into it to lose money, to shovel tens of millions of dollars out the door.
No, you know what? At best, Pete, you get an owner who treats this as a hobby because he has other businesses that he makes his real money on.
Yeah.
But like anything else that you own, how many times are you going to hand somebody $2 and have them only give you back $1? How long are you going to do that?
Right.
I don't care how rich you are. Like, this is a business. You're absolutely right. And we don't like the decisions sometimes, but we're not the ones that have to make them either. And look, what happens here, you're right. There are a lot of there are more shrewd, I think, owner and front office groups now than there were like 2 decades ago. We all know that. But it only takes 1 or 2 ownership groups that don't need to do that as much to just wreck, what the price of the market is on in any given off season. And so you still just have a few of those groups left that are going to give people a $300 million contract. I don't say we're going to see as much of them going forward, but we're still going to see that from time to time.
Yep.
Well, and it kind of begs the question of not really what happens this year, but what happens the following year. So, because there's a lot of things that need to go right in baseball and around the world for the baseball season to actually be in full swing. And if those things don't happen, we could find ourselves in a very interesting situation in 2022. So I know we get to this every winter, but there's a lot of question marks for this offseason. And I think there's way more this year than there was last year.
Well, you've got teams across the league with financial issues clearly not tendering people they normally would in a normal year. Like, look, if this was a normal year, if COVID wouldn't have happened, Colton Wong would be returning for what could be his final season. It was a $12.5 million option. It would have been picked up.
Yeah.
I don't have a doubt. It's a Gold Glove second baseman. No, he's just not have an all-star at bat. He does not have an all-star bat. Offensively, he hasn't blossomed into what we were all hoping he would. But with the defense, like you didn't need him to be that. You needed him to provide up the middle defense. So in a normal year, that guy stays. In a normal year, Rosario from Minnesota is probably back again. Maybe in Chicago they give Schwarber one more go to give at least trade value to them mid-year. And we're not seeing that, so we're seeing a lot more guys hit the market. So there is tons of uncertainty. There's a CBA after this year. A team like the Cardinals are waiting for Fowler and Carpenter to drop off the books to make some bigger moves potentially in 2022. There's a lot of teams that might be on pause this year, thinking how many years does it take to get us back to make this revenue back that we lost from 2020? And it impacts more teams than what people would think. Just because they're owned by a billionaire doesn't mean that billionaire has derp eyes and doesn't really give a shit how much money he or she loses. It doesn't work that way. So
Yeah.
I said derp eyes.
You know, Ron, the only point I'd push back on there that you said, and I think they're all legit. I think the only thing that might have changed if we had a normal year is that maybe Schwarber would have gotten tendered. But I think the only reason he would have is because they would be looking to explore a trade in the off season. And so they would just be carrying it through until they had an opportunity. And I think that over the course of a full season last year, he probably would have, his numbers would have normalized and he would have established some kind of value in trade. I think regardless, going into 2021, Kyle Schwarber was not going to be a Cub. I think he was going to get traded. I think that Jed was going to be looking to make the change, and it was clear that Theo wasn't gonna go into this 10th year because he knew that changes were going to have to be made, and he didn't want to be the guy to do it because he wasn't going to be there for the long term.
Yeah.
So I think this was probably the plan really early on.
You're probably right, but I it's not totally not what I said, because I think he is returning next year. I think he would have been tendered. So we agree on that part.
Yeah.
And I do think that they would have explored a trade for him, whether it be towards the deadline to see if he could increase his value throughout the course of the season. Or maybe you're right. Maybe there's an American League team that just needed this going into spring training. So either way, yeah, I agree. 2022, at least he's not a Cub anymore. And I think we all knew that was coming before COVID or anything else happened. But you know what's funny is that anytime you take over a job for somebody, Pete, that you've been working with, no two people ever do something the same way. And sometimes your human instinct is to like, I bit my tongue for about 2.5 years. All that shit you built over here, I'm going to wipe it all out. One, because I didn't agree with it, but I wasn't going to say anything. Two is I'm going to make my statement right now and say,
well, and it came out in Theo's farewell press conference. You know, he was the one who said that Jed objected to adding Eloy Jimenez to the Jose Quintana deal. He didn't want to see him go. You know, it wasn't Jed saying that I wanted to do this. And, you know, going back to the non-tenders, honestly, I wouldn't read too much into a lot of the tender decisions anyway, because I think that there were probably some pretty cold-eyed calculations about, no, we think that, Chris Bryant, he got tendered a contract, but I think that's because the Cubs made the calculation that he has trade value and they didn't just want to give him away, that they're going to be like, I'd be stunned if Chris Bryant is a Cub at the start of the baseball season. I think he's gone. And it's just going to be a question of where can they get the best value in a trade. Yeah,
and I think sometimes it's the other way around, Pete, where in the Cardinals case, they had John Brebbia, who'd been an extremely effective reliever, has Tommy John surgery, right?
When used properly.
Exactly, right. Yes. When used only every third day at night. I'm sure there's some stat head out there. Well, when his spin rate's much better at night, so we only use him every third day. We can get into the stat fuckers later. But I'm just kidding. I love all you guys, except a couple of you. You're a couple of your assholes. But but in a case like John Brebbia, the Cardinals, of course, they would love to have him back. But you're not going to pay his value now when he's going to be recovering for most, if not all, of next year. So yes, they non-tendered him, but they are going to try to bring him back on a minor league deal. So sometimes this is done for other reasons. But you know what? Other teams are free to do that now too. Like, hey, great middle reliever. We know you have a short lifespan of about 3 to 4 years before you die off in professional baseball. But you know, we're willing to stick it out, sign you to a minor league deal. We think we got a winning team in 2022. So why don't you rehab over here? and we've got a spot for you guaranteed in 2022. So sometimes it works the other way around too, where you don't necessarily want to get rid of a guy, but you got to clear a roster spot off, sign him to a minor league deal and let him rehab. I think that's what St. Louis is likely doing with John Brevia, but shit, I'm not in the front office. I don't know. This is me guessing. And also based off of some credible media people that think the same thing. And so now Rangel Ravello, which was the other non-tender. I hate to say this, don't mean to sound like a dick, but dime a dozen. All right, backup first baseman, backup outfielder. Okay.
Hey, Ron, I don't know if you were monitoring it, but in the comments, Greg is back.
I saw him, yeah.
And he was very excited. I just want to calm him down, Greg. Elliott's only here as a special guest. Don't get excited. We discussed it at the top of the show.
One time.
Elliott owes us 4 cents because he misread the statement and he thought that he got 2 cents in severance. He actually owes us 2 cents.
It was HR that sent me the check, so you're not going to get it back.
Ron,
I've already paid taxes on it. You're not getting it back.
I'm pulling HR responsibilities from you, Ron. You can't be trusted.
Oh,
obviously.
yeah. Let me tell you a little story about HR. This is how great I am. Consistently, year in and year out, like these. I'm the one that gets the emails to remind me that I have to take the training. I'm also the one that, I have this reputation, and we interviewed interns one time, 3 of them in a row. And
really cute.
Back to back. I'm not getting into that. Back to back. And
so yes, they were.
And interviewed all 3. The first one I interviewed was one I preferred, and that one had a baseball / softball background, so we had something to relate to. It was a lot more energy. HR calls me an hour later. What did you say to the first one? Because the first one disappeared after the first interview. She was supposed to stay for 2 more. HR immediately defaulted to, did you scare her off somehow? No, I didn't. The memo didn't get to her. She had to stay for 2 more interviews. She ended up being my intern 2.5 years ago. But she's great. She's actually, the company hired her on permanently. She's been there for a couple of years now. But that's my. I'm not an HR nightmare by any means, but I'm one that HR has to keep an eye on to complete training, to approve expense reports when you're supposed to, that kind of stuff. So yes, Pete, I wouldn't have. Pete's a complete liar. I never would have been in charge of HR responsibilities for us. No, there's no way in hell. That is not my wheelhouse. I can't even fill out forms at the doctor's office. I sweat doing that. There's no way I would ever have a job filling out paperwork that affected people's lives.
I asked her to spin around when she got up. Was that wrong? Should I not have done that?
No. It wasn't like that at all. But I'm known for having a little bit of a sense of humor and whatever. And I think the first thing was, they didn't ask me if I scared anybody off, but what happened to her was kind of the question. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, I hired her intern.
I bet you did.
She was great.
I bet.
She was awesome.
You know what happened when I hired an intern? I have an 8-year-old son.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Good on you.
True story.
I might have known that and forgot it, but that is a good story.
So some interesting questions in the comments. Gene asked, and I think we've addressed this before, but still a good one to bring up. You guys see a strike? Football and the NBA are spending normal. Hockey hasn't been far behind. Mm-hmm. Football has TV dollars, but what do you think? Are we going to see a strike in baseball?
It's possible. It's very, very possible.
I wouldn't take it off the table. I know a lot of the guys were disappointed in the half season and they want to play baseball, but I think they feel like they've been getting shafted. So
yeah, there's that. There's service time, right? There's draft pick compensation. I think one of the overall, I'm paraphrasing this whole thing, but I think one of the overall goals for the players union is they want to get these guys paid earlier, right? Instead of at 28, 29, where teams aren't giving out contracts, long-term contracts to players at anywhere near 30 anymore. The days of Albert getting a 10-year deal at 32 are done. And so they've got, the last bargain agreement hasn't really worked in their favor. So they've got that to overcome. They've got COVID to overcome. They got the fact that they couldn't get back on the field, which they maybe could have a month earlier than what they did because they couldn't come to an agreement. I think it would be devastating for them to have a work. I think the one thing working in favor to not have a strike is the fact that the sport was set behind. It hit a major speed bump in 2020, and if we don't get baseball back fully, because we're not even guaranteed to get a full season in 21,
No.
right? And we're guaranteed almost that there are going to be some cities that sell out, but I guarantee you guys, like this bank it 3.5 million tickets a year sold for any of these teams that normally get that attendance, that is not going to be there in 21. Baseball can't afford a strike more than ever, and I think that's the one thing, just in my opinion, that's the one thing working in favor of not having a strike, because I think the cooler heads on this, common sense, I believe most part prevails. I think the cooler heads will win out here, and that warning will reach everybody that if you strike now, when all this other shit has happened, this couldn't be the worst time to not come to an agreement, to not come to the table. So that's the hope I hold on to. But I don't know. Could be wrong.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not so optimistic. I think that everything is going against them so much that unfortunately, I think that a strike's inevitable. They have so many issues that they have to negotiate: service time, DH, playoffs, roster sizes. A lot of things that they've been able to agree their way through.
Yeah.
Because of the unique circumstances this past year, and that they'll probably end up doing again this year. But they haven't even started negotiating on the CBA, and it expires after the 21 season. And by now, you've usually started negotiations, unless they can agree to an extension of the current CBA, which I don't see the players doing because their terms are so unfavorable.
Yeah.
You're going to end up against the deadline. And looking at who the players have brought in to be a part of their executive team now, they're more hardline than they were at the last negotiations.
Yeah.
I can't see the players backing down at all. So it's unfortunate and it's frustrating, but I think that it's inevitable that there's going to be a work stoppage of some kind. I don't know if it's going to be a strike or a lockout, but I think that we're going to see 3 years in a row of shortened baseball, if we even have baseball in 2022.
Yeah. Well, if they do it now, I'll stick to my guns on this one. I'm trying to be optimistic, but Pete, I do share the same concerns you have. When it's about money, it's different than just agreeing on a bigger playoff format, right? When you talk about paying guys earlier, maybe shortening the time when a player is eligible to become a free agent. Those are not. None of those are even conceivable as being slam dunks. I mean, the ownership side is it's going to be tough for them to give even an inch on that, right? Because you're right, it is so favorable to them. The draft pick compensation is favorable. The luxury tax, believe it or not, for those that don't want to spend $300 million on their payroll, the luxury tax is favorable to the owners because they've got every excuse in the world to not go overboard. So yeah, this one's gonna be tough. Gene is asking Sorry, I have it on here, but I'm looking. Gene says Nashville or Montreal for an expansion. I think it could be both, man. I think it's gonna be two teams like it usually is if it's anything. As a Cardinals fans, all of us, most of us on here, I don't think we want to see Nashville with a team. That's consistently Tennessee, Kentucky, that whole Midwest region has traditionally been Cardinals fans. Going back generations because of KMOX and because of Harry Carey, because Harry Carey's best announcing days were with St. Louis during those KMOX days. He was a much better broadcaster with KMOX than he ever was with WGN.
Well, that's because he hadn't been ravaged by years and years of alcohol abuse. He was still half sober.
Yeah.
Was he? You never know.
Well, yeah, when he woke up in the morning. I don't think when he woke up with the Cubs and the White Sox, I don't think he was sober even after he'd slept one off.
Guys, you think Montreal gets a team back, really?
I don't know. If you had asked me this time last year, I would have said Portland. I would have thought Nashville and Portland, but I don't know that Major League Baseball is going to want to invest $1 billion in a team in a city that has had nothing but negative headlines for the last 100+ days.
Yeah.
And to trust that kind of an investment in that environment. personally wouldn't vote to put money in there if I was an owner.
Yeah, it'd be tough, right? Nashville, I think, is viable. I mean, they're
Absolutely.
it's
growing
definitely
like
viable.
crazy.
As fans of the Cardinals, that is Cardinals territory. So I can imagine the Cardinals ownership group wouldn't be in favor of that.
Unless there's 100% certainty that there will be a 2022 season, then I don't think they try and push for expansion.
Yeah, I don't either. I think that's farther out, regardless, Elliot. I don't.
Yeah, I'm thinking 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Probably be the earliest that I think they would do an expansion.
Yeah, well, I think they're due for it. I think it's needed. I think there are plenty of other markets that have grown. I mean, look, these sizes of cities do fluctuate. They do change. I mean, and so down here in the South, where I mean, it could be a relocation. Florida has had a lot of time now to prove that they can support a team. And a place like Tampa Bay, I mean, you got to be frustrated. I mean, there's probably like 10,000 of the 12,000 fans that do show up there are probably really good fans. And unfortunately, they can't get the transient snowbirds down there to watch a baseball game and support the local team. And do
you think Charlotte could do it?
I don't think it would. I think it'd be blocked by Atlanta, DC, and Washington. I think there are already 3 markets kind of here existing, and of course you have these dickhead Reds up there that claim the Charlotte market too, being a 7-hour drive away. You have 4 teams here that are going to block it to Charlotte. I don't think it's ever coming here.
I mean, that's terrible because you've already got NHL, NFL, NBA. I mean, you really can't call.
Well, NHL's in Raleigh for whatever that's worth, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there are at least 2. Right. I can't see MLB coming here. In this place, it would have to grow in population. I think have to be quite sizable. It's nice now, but I don't think the love in this region. This is for college football. It's for football. This is a football place and a basketball place. I'm surprised hockey. I'm just surprised hockey survived in Carolina for this long, but it has.
Right.
But it is farther towards the East Coast, a little bit northeast. But here, this is a football, basketball region. It's never going to be a baseball. Yeah, I don't think.
And you would think that Vegas might be a viable option, but then you look at just how many teams there already are in Southern California, and that's a short drive away.
Yeah. And
I just wonder if, the Angels, the Dodgers, the Padres would all get on board for, oh yeah, no, please add a 4th team in our general and the Diamondbacks.
And the Diamondbacks,
right there in Phoenix, So you think about it, you've already got 4 teams there. Let's add a 5th, please. And the Rockies aren't too far away either. I mean, you start to think about it.
No, they did move a football team over there, right? But they did. But it is a once a week venue. That is different. It's a different context. I don't care what the argument is. When baseball's played that often, 81 games in Vegas, Jesus, hopefully that's a dome stadium.
Got to be.
Can you imagine AstroTurf there?
Oh,
I mean, you could just fry eggs in that outfield mid-afternoon. So, I don't know. Vegas is one of those names that I read about that pops up every once in a while. I think that would be a long shot. I think Charlotte's out of the question. Nashville seems like a very viable option, at least just regionally. If you look where the teams are located, that one does, in all honesty, make sense. Although I don't want to see my fan base erode over the next few generations, but having a team in Nashville would do that. But whatever. I'm not thinking that far ahead yet. Fuck, I'm worried if we're going to have normal baseball in 21.
I tell you what, I think the economics post-COVID will dictate expansion. If baseball continues to take a bath for the next 2 years, I could see them accelerating the process of expansion just to bring in that cash infusion, right? Because it's going to be how many billions of dollars that gets distributed among the other 30 teams. I can see them chomping at the bit, particularly the small market teams that are already operating on a shoestring.
Yeah, don't disagree. So I know we were going to talk about a non-tender list and expanse tonight, but if you want to hear my all of my thoughts on what the Cardinals should or shouldn't do, their shopping list, what my shopping list would be, I'll give you at the end of the day what I talked about with Jim Cromer on Ruffled Feathers today, because we talked about it for about over an hour. And you can go check out that podcast. It's just on Two Birds on a Bat. You can search it on any app you're on. I think that my shopping list is short, but I think Adam Wainwright at this point for the Cardinals is a must-have back. And I know he's going to be 39, but he was their most reliable pitcher in 2020 in a shortened season. You lost Dakota Hudson for the entire 2021 campaign. You got more questions, and it's easy for as Cardinals fans to overlook the need for pitching because it seems like we always have depth and we always have enough to get by. But we have no idea what we've got in Miles Michaelis coming back because he was out the whole year. KK. Hey, he looked good. Jim said it very well today, and I can't say it any better. Nobody can figure out how that guy gets people out, but he does. But it's his second tour now through the National League. There's no guarantee. We saw what happened to Sung Wong Oh, right? My son especially, in his second year. You can never have too much pitching. The Cardinals actually need Adam Wainwright back. They've got to get him back. Of course, the maybe not the most logical part of me, but the fan in me says I cannot. It'd be hard for me to tolerate Yadier Molina wearing another uniform. Although a good part of me too wants this younger kid who's been waiting patiently for his shot. I want him to get his shot. At the same time, I'm like, you can't. The intangibles that Yadier Molina brings, the certainty behind the plate defensively. I wish they didn't need him offensively as much as they have had to rely on him because they just haven't had a very good team. But I think you want to have him back. But I prioritize Adam Wainwright at this point. Like, you've got to get that guy back. You got to get some stability in that rotation. And then the last thing is I go after one of these outfielders because your outfielders right now, look, I don't want to hope year after year that they all improve enough just to be average. That sucks. Like, when did we arrive there? Did we say, well, Tyler O'Neill improved his strikeout rate by 9%. The Cardinals outfield was ranked like 25th or below in almost every major offensive category. I don't want to hear that somebody improved their strikeout rate by whatever percentage. Man, I want at least average, a couple average, and I'll take one slightly above average outfielder. You don't have that here. Any of these guys would be better than what you have right now, pending Dylan Carlson's first full season. So yes, I'm signing Eddie Rosario for $5 million, for $7 million, for $9 million, for 1 year. I'm doing it. Or Schwarber. Shit, I'll take him too. And I'll rub it in your guys' face and it'll probably backfire on me. But I would take either of those guys because they can help the Cardinals. At the end of the day, I don't think they'll do it. I think Molina and Wainwright will be back, and I think there'll be a couple signings potentially or a trade that just it's not going to get people too excited. I do think that they might be holding on their cards until 2022 for the CBA, and then to get Fowler and Carpenter's names off the books finally, and are able to have some more flexibility. I think that's more likely what's going to happen. But that's if you want my whole opinion on this whole non-tender list, that's kind of it.
Ron, I don't think that the Cubs' approach is going to be that much different. That they're going to limp through 2021 with their eyes on 2022 when all of these contracts come off the books, and they have, like you said, a lot more flexibility, and there's a far more attractive free agent market in the next offseason. And probably the economics also look better than they do right now.
Well, and yes, they could potentially and are likely to, right? But how many other teams are going to have that flexibility in 22 and 92? You may be paying attention to your own team and going, shit, we got all these guys coming off the books in 2022. We're going to have all this money to spend. And you look up and you're like, oh, shit, 11 other teams do too. And all of a sudden, you're right back to where you were. Like, my team's not going to spend where they're going to spend and how much they're going to spend there. They're going to do what they normally do and pull out their abacus and say, that position's only worth $4 million. And we're not paying a penny over that. So, I don't know, man. How far we fall. If you would have told me in 2013 when baseball media and everybody was slobbering all over the Cardinals and the way they do their minor league system and they always have talent coming up and all these all-stars in their first or second year, if you would have told me that this is what I was going to be talking about in December of 2020, I would have said, you're out of your fucking mind. And here we are. I was out of my mind. People saw this well before fans like I did. And so how far we've fallen how much I miss the days of the core, and that those days are never coming back. By the way, right? I am never going to sit here in my lifetime and go, I've got another Albert Pujols, Scott Rowland, and Jim Edmonds to look at, just inked in that lineup. Tony La Russa didn't have those guys in pencil. He had them in ink every day. Those days are gone. We all pine for them. We're not getting them back.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Ron. And one person who immediately springs to mind is a one-time guest of ours, Tim Huve. I can't agree with these guys who completely obsess over prospects, and their entire focus is prospects, because prospects don't always pay off. And this game is not about success at the single, double, and AAA levels. This game is about success at the major league level. And all the minor league championships that you win don't mean shit.
Nope.
And so you can have all these guys who are phenomenal in the minors, but if they don't show it in the majors, then their only other value is what you can get in trade. And hoarding prospects and talking about how great they're going to be doesn't do you any good if they don't pay off. And as much as we thought, as great as we thought that Kyle Schwarber was going to be, he wasn't. He wasn't what we were led to believe he was going to be as a hitter. Is he an above average hitter? Yes. He's not the best hitter in the Cubs lineup, which is what he was touted as.
Yeah.
He was touted as a guy who was going to hit 300 plus, who was going to hit 30 plus home runs a year, and who was going to be a masher in the middle of the lineup for years and years and years. And that's not what he is. He's a guy who's got a lot of power, but he also has a lot of holes in his swing. And he too often gets into a funk where he starts selling out for home runs and he forgets to put bat to ball.
Yeah.
And the Cubs have too many of those guys. And that's happened a lot with their minor league. He's been glossed over, but the other release, right? That the other non-tender that the Cubs had that made major news was Albert Almora.
Yeah.
He was the very first pick of the Epstein Hoyer crew, and he never panned out. He didn't even pan out on his biggest tool, which was his defense. He had one really great year, and then he had another good year. And then after that, it just all went away.
It kind of fell apart on him.
Yeah, you know what it's like when prospects like you're talking about, Pete, or prospects like that have come through the Cardinal system that we thought were going to be all that. It's kind of like watching that movie trailer. You're like, shit, that looks really cool. I can't wait to go see that movie. And then you go see that movie and you're like, man, they only put the best parts of the trailer. They only put the best parts of the movie in the trailer. This movie's not that great. And I feel like far too often, that's what happens in baseball, where we see somebody we get really excited about because we've seen snippets. And then we watch the full feature film and we're like, oh, isn't that great? Right?
But wait, but I saw the 2015, 2016 trailer. Kyle Schwarber's supposed to win an Oscar.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just a really, really good trailer.
Yep. Or he starred the Star Wars movie and never got casted again because he was typecast. He was Kyle Schwarber, and I hate this because I love the guy to death. He had the Mark Hamill thing, I think, happen to him, right? Where couldn't get cast for a lot of the things he probably could have or should have, arguably, and that's an interesting segue. So Pete, lead us out of this baseball mess here, because we got something we got to touch on briefly. If you're a baseball fan strictly and you don't like other things, you might want to get the hell out of here in a few minutes. I do want to mention something. There's a logo right below me called Gateway City Sports. We have joined up with them, and so we've teamed up and with Gateway City Sports, we've joined it as a Team of Rivals podcast. We're joining that group, as well as 2 for 3, which is a great podcast done by Mike Stevenson. Mike's on First. You'll find him on Twitter. Derek King Sports Show, and we've got others on the way. A lot more announcements to be made. So check out that Facebook page, Gateway City Sports. You can find it at that same name on Twitter, and you can find us on Instagram too. So we're proud to be a part of Gateway City.
Yeah, we are.
Even
and
the Cubs
I just made
fans.
the formal offer, Ron. I just made the formal offer that we discussed last week in the comments section, asking Gene if he wanted to join us as producer, and just reminding him that the pay is really good once we fire your ass. Just ask Elliott.
That's right. You won't get shit, Gene. You won't get shit.
That is right.
And with that, When we're not live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, you can find us anywhere and everywhere. Website is teamarivalspodcast.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Team Arrivals Podcast, or on Twitter at Team Arrivals Pod. Hell, we may even add Parler to our role. Send us an email at the show at teamarivalspodcast.com. You can find Elliott on Twitter if you want to at
TOR_Elliott.
Yeah, we're going to have to send you a cease and desist letter on that. You're going to have to change that handle.
Oh, yeah.
You can find Ron at
TR_Ron75. That is intellectual property, Elliott. You're no longer allowed to use it.
You won't find me on Twitter, although who knows? Maybe I'll create a profile maybe I'll be TOR_Elliott from now on. If you are watching us live, you can catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. If you do love the show, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, tell your friends about us, like us, write a review. Help us bump it up. That's one of my goals in the new year, is to see growth across all of our platforms. And so,
smash that like button.
Yeah, smash that like button. There's only so much work that we can do. But really, ultimately, we rely on you guys to help us out with that. So you enjoy the show, tell others about it. And after you've done all of that, go ahead and leave a review by going to ratethispodcast.com/TOR. Follow the simple instructions. Make it a good one. Smash that like button. We're going to call it a night on the Baseball Talk. Proud new members of the Gateway City Sports group of guys, as Ron described it before the show started. So if you're just here for baseball, we appreciate you guys joining us. And if you want to hear us talk about the Mandalorian, stick around because it's coming.
It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. Yes,
It
we'll be
is.
back. We'll be back here in 1 minute. It's to give us a clean break. Those of you on audio will not even know the difference. Those of you watching us live, we will bid you, I guess, adieu for a second here. But if you want to stick around, we will be right back with a little talk about something else we love. Don't be jealous. See you in a minute. All right, so we're going to be back here for a second. Welcome back, everyone, if you stuck around. Not many have. They drop like flies when we start talking about the other subject matter. We took a brief pause. We talked baseball for almost an entire hour. We are shifting gears here a little bit, and we're talking about something we all love truly, and we get another episode of it tomorrow, but that was The Mandalorian. Guys, the big thing, I mean, just the thing we've all been waiting on. We heard about it we heard the name a couple episodes ago. We've heard it all in between season 1 and 2. We all expected it to happen. We saw the rumors. We finally got to see in live action a character that I'd like to, before we go into the episode, just go kind of like through the evolution of this character, because I don't know if either of you guys saw the feature-length animated film back in 2008 at that time.
Yes.
No.
Okay. So I remember at that time, I remember in that movie with my now 15-year-old son. He was obviously much younger at that point in time. He was only 3 years old.
Would have been what, 3?
Yeah. I remember, like, did they really do this? Did they really bring in a character that talked to her master that way? That master being Anakin Skywalker, and you watch it, and you're like, this didn't measure up with how the prequel. I mean, Anakin was a little belligerent to Obi-Wan, right? So we kind of saw that happen. But the nicknames, the R2E, Sky Guy, you're like, man, the way that kicked off, that character was not liked, especially by people our age, both male and female, because that wasn't kind of the Jedi Padawan or the Master Padawan relationship that we thought that we would have seen, and it wasn't. And over the years, that character evolved, and you saw it through the course of the show. And I think it came to like a turning point in that very last season, Pete, when Ahsoka walked away from the Order. I mean, what an evolution of that character. We didn't want to see her as part of it in the beginning, and then by the time she walked away from the Jedi Order, we didn't want to see her walk away. And then, of course, we had the Rebels series where she showed up again, and I got to tell you, when she showed back up on Rebels, I mean, I might have even squealed a little bit as a grown man.
It took that series to a new level when Filoni brought her into the story.
Absolutely, it did. And at that point, you all, if you were questioning it before, you thought, hey, you know, I really liked what they did with that. By the time it arrived again at your doorstep on Rebels, you're like, shit, this is really cool. You know, they brought something back. They're tying these two series together in a way that I don't think we expected it when Rebels kicked off.
Well, I tell you what, when in Between Two Worlds, when she was saved, I squealed. So
we kind of thought she was alive, right? At the end of season 2, when it showed the showdown between her and Vader, it showed her limping back into that temple. So we kind of like all thought, she made it. We don't know what happened to her after that, if we'll ever see her again. But you're right, Elliot. And when she was kind of, you know, that unnatural thing, I still don't quite know how I feel about that World Between Worlds thing, but she was pulled back in. Ultimately, she returned. She went right back to where he pulled her out of. I mean, at least back to that. So now you know why at the end of season 2 she's limping back in the temple. That's because Ezra pulled her out and sent her right back in. So at that point, you know, we got to see the closeout to the Clone Wars, which made us all love her all that much more. I mean, she stood up against a well-trained Sith Lord in Darth Maul who was pissed off at everybody, and she held her damn own and probably could have had him. And at the end of the day, said, no, you're not taking these lightsabers. You're going to go create chaos and all that stuff. So we all know how the Clone Wars ended. We covered it on here. But I guess I'm long-winded on this, but this has been a character that's had a journey that you know, kind of like we saw with Bo-Katan. If you followed all this stuff, you've watched it with your kids, you know, you've been able to experience Star Wars, not in film so much as you have watching these animated series with your kids. Definitely Pete, who annoyingly holds out and doesn't talk to us for days because he's waiting to watch the episode. I don't have that kind of patience.
Oh no, I'll have watched it tomorrow morning. Boy's here tonight.
Okay. I don't know, guys. This was a really cool way, I think, that they introduced her. I didn't think they would do it quite like this. I thought it would be maybe something that was a little more dramatic. I thought it would be more dramatic in a different way, not in a bad way, but like I thought it would be more of a grand entrance. And instead, it was like, man, it was right there at the beginning. But if you guys want to share any of your thoughts real quick, don't let me march into that because I just hogged the mic with all of my thoughts on this character over the years. You guys want to share anything that you've similar experience? Did you guys see it the same way, different?
2 thoughts.
Yep.
And I think part of it is because this character is so personal from Dave Filoni. Neither introduction for Rebels and obviously for the Mandalorian. And then we would assume moving forward in Mandalorian, neither integration of Ahsoka has felt forced. Mm-hmm. It hasn't felt like it was fan service. It's felt like it was in service to the story. And that's something that I really appreciated. You know, it didn't feel like, hey, here's Ahsoka because we know you don't like Rebels. It was here's Ahsoka because it's moving the story forward.
Yeah,
right. And it feels like the same thing is true of her integration into the Mandalorian. I think it's going to be a while before we see her again. I think we will see her again later this season, but I think it's going to be a while before we do.
Well, we've only got 3 episodes left, so.
Well, we got to have some kind of climactic battle at the end. So and we know she's looking. We know she's looking for Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, and that's one that hasn't been hinted at. So, you know, the question, but this could just be the launch for the Ahsoka series, right? It's like she's looking for Thrawn, and now we know that she's going to find him, and we may never see her again in Mandalorian.
So,
but then the other thing, let me get in my second one.
Go
and then you can launch, Elliot, because my second one's a quick one, and I got to do it because I had to do it because I have to do it. And I already told you guys this one, but nerd point, her head tails are too short. And I confirmed this by going back. She's older in this than she was in Rebels.
I mean, as fans who knew who she was, like we know the character when they said, when Bo-Katan said, "Go see Ahsoka Tano." So I mean, we were all like, we were ready for it. But fans who don't follow along on the animated series were like, "Who?" So I thought it was a nice introduction the way that they brought her into the episode, where they knew that there was a Jedi that he was going to see. So I thought the introduction was kind of cool, the way that they did it, where she was, out in the forest and there was the smoke and the fog and they couldn't quite see it. And to introduce that, this is like a legit Jedi that he is going to see. So I thought that introduction was cool. So, and then I don't know if you guys caught it in maybe like in your first view of it, but the owl was there.
Yeah,
the convoy.
The owl. Okay. A lot of people that aren't close to it need explanation for that. So without being long-winded about it, that owl showed up in the Clone Wars animated series as I think post that Mortis arc, where it was the daughter and the son were the light and the dark side. The father was the balance, and so that goes all the way back to the Clone Wars. Of course, we saw the Condor, I think is what they call it. A Convor or something. I can't remember. I'm gonna screw the name.
Convery. It's named after Filoni's wife.
Okay. So that owl shows back up in Rebels whenever Ahsoka's present, basically, and so you kind of see that there. You saw the very last scene of Clone Wars. You saw that owl circling above where Darth Vader looked up. So it is significant. No, Elliott, to answer your question, I did not catch that in the first time. In fact, the internet caught that for me. All the nerds out there have way more time than I do. Who picked that out. I mean, there are people out there, and I shit you not, if you go on YouTube, like after these things air, there are people out there that watch this shit frame by frame and look for every little Easter egg that's possibly hidden. I did not catch that.
I caught it on my second watch through, sitting on the branch in one of the shots.
I didn't see it. Yeah. I missed it.
Liam and I caught it on the first watch. We did see it, but I think I was kind of looking for every Dave Filoni signature when it came to Ahsoka. So I was
and you knew he was direct. It was kind of broadcast that he was direct. It was broadcast that he was directing this episode. So naturally, you look around like he's going to do something in here to pay off for some of those people who followed all his work. So that was to be expected. I tell you guys, I was a little surprised that she just showed up right at the beginning. They didn't waste any time at all. And as soon as you saw the lightsabers, you saw the sabers before you saw her. You knew exactly who it was. It had the right sound. I was always wondering because sometimes in that animated stuff, the animation of the characters, how fast they move and everything else is obviously not human. It defies all laws of physics. But I think they did it well enough in a live action to where it was very believable, very familiar, very believable. And we could talk about the look here in a second. I know Pete had a little bit of issue with the Leku or whatever they call it being a little bit too short. But I'll go back to it again here. Yeah.
So
can't say I'm excited about the name. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
But Grogu.
I'm kind of I don't know, man. I'm just indifferent. It's like all these other Star Wars things. We've heard them in the beginning. We've heard them at some point in time.
Yeah.
And we kind of forget about it. And we just kind of accept it, and it doesn't really matter down the road. It's kind of like having, DH in the National League. Everybody will bitch about it now. 5 years from now, nobody will care. It'll seem like it's always been there. And I think this name. How did we feel? None of us remember. We were too young. How did adults feel about the name Yoda in 1980? And now it's just kind of like it's
Everybody refers to him.
Yeah. Right. So it's probably one of those same exact things, Pete. Like, it sounds odd now. In 20 years, we'll be like, oh, that Grogu character was my favorite.
You remember when we called him Baby Yoda? That was so silly.
Yeah.
Why would we call Grogu Baby Yoda?
And Lucasfilm tried to call him the child, and then they had to give
Child. Yep.
It's probably better that they gave his name away at this point and not at the very end. Very end would have been more odd. At least we get to stew with it for a while before this series ends up finally being over. But just going back to the overall look, I think Rosario Dawson looks fantastic as the character.
Yeah.
Right. I think she nails it. I wasn't sure. There's this faction of people that thought Ashley Eckstein, who had done wife of the former World Series champion Cardinal shortstop,
You don't say.
voiced the character for years, right? Voiced it on Clone Wars.
Ron, does it bother you that she's the more famous of the two spouses?
To Star Wars fans, she definitely is. I think
I think she just is, period.
She might be. She might be at this point.
She's got her own clothing line.
She does. A lot of people, though, were disappointed that she didn't get a shot at doing this. I'm just not sure physically and looks and everything if Ashley Eckstein would have been able to pull it off. I mean, her voice is synonymous with the character. She voiced it really well. I mean, fantastic. But I think Rosario Dawson, I feel like, at least from an on-screen presence, I don't think they could have gone. I think they got it right. Leku aside, I think I know Pete's got some issues with the shortness of it, but I think everything else. I mean, she looks great as the character. The voice is obviously different, but this is an older version of Ahsoka. I got past the voice really quick.
Yeah, me too.
So that didn't bother me. The setting of the story I thought was interesting. I know some people were confused a little bit, thought that might have been Mustafar. And obviously it wasn't. It's a different place. It's called Corvus. We knew that going in. So I thought, hey, it's a new planet we haven't seen yet. I don't really have much to say about this episode. I was so wanting to see Ahsoka on screen. This episode was fine. It was entertaining. There was kind of some interesting parts where she was communicating with Grogu, or the child, or Baby Yoda, or whatever you want to call him, where she was communicating without talking. I thought it was also interesting, guys, that she revealed that he had resided at the Jedi Temple, and that he was trained at the Jedi Temple, and then his memory went dark at some point. Somebody removed him from the temple, and
during Order 66.
All he had to do was crawl under the couch.
Nobody would have found him.
Yeah, Anakin wasn't looking under the couch. I mean,
Right.
hell, I didn't look for my son when we were playing hide and seek last week, and he was just under the pillows. So Grogu just slides right into that space in the couch.
You think
he goes right back to the part of the couch where you never vacuum.
And how much smaller was he then, Pete, than he is now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was like the size of an egg, maybe. We don't even know, but
and for all we know, he was the inspiration for Luke disconnecting from the Force. What we're going to see is that later on, he was the one who told Luke about it. He's like, "Hey, Luke, listen, this is what you got to do.
I can teach you how to shut that shit off. You want to know?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
First one's free.
Well,
Next
but
one's going to cost you.
Go ahead.
There's
Ellie.
going to be another introduction of another Jedi. So hopefully, when he takes him to the Jedi Temple and sets him on the right,
is there going to be the introduction of another Jedi?
maybe. I mean, they introduced the possibility, bringing Grogu to the temple, setting him on there, and having him meditate, and maybe somebody will
Pick a
come look
path,
for
right?
him.
That's what it was. It was pick a path.
Right,
Pick his path.
pick a path. Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's actually one of the things I really wanted to cover tonight was, who do you guys think that Jedi might be? Because there's an internet rumor flying around about there. And by the way, there's this complete, I don't know what to think of this guy. He's on YouTube. He calls himself Mike Zero. Every video he puts out there's the word shocking in the description.
Your son loves him.
No, he does not. No, he does not. But there, besides him, there are other rumors that Mace Windu is the one who's going to show up.
Mace is dead.
Yes, I agree, Pete. And I love Samuel L. Jackson. We all do. I don't need to see a fucked up Jedi Nick Fury showing back up 30 years later, or however long it is.
You did that once with Darth Maul. Don't go to that well again.
I don't think they will. I don't think they will. I'm not buying that at all. We didn't see him die, but we saw him thrown out of a skyscraper, being shot by lightning with his right arm cut off. So I assume that Mace Windu is dead, and I'm fine with that character being dead. He was kind of an asshole, to be honest.
Yeah,
with
he
you.
was. He's. We've talked about it before. He is the symbol of the corruption of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, he is an illustration for why it fell in the first place. You thought you knew more. You thought you knew better,
right?
And you didn't.
He's the political Jedi that they were never supposed to be.
Yep, that was the vanity right there. I am obviously better. And the way he treated Ahsoka at the end of Clone Wars. Okay, citizen, we're not going to talk to you about any of our stuff anymore. Like, are you kidding me? You're one of the assholes that said, we're going to throw her to the wolves. We're not even going to investigate this and whatever. You guys know the story. He's one of the ones that kind of turned his back on her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that character became very unlikable, and not just in the prequels, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson, like, we couldn't have done better, but we didn't, and they made him worse. Honestly, in the Clone Wars, I didn't like him anymore, and so I'm done with it. I don't want to see them go there. I agree with you guys. I would be shocked. At the same time, I don't want to see Luke Skywalker being the Jedi that shows up in this. I think that would overshadow this story so badly and in the wrong way. I don't want to see that happen.
I think it could be Ezra.
That's my money.
I mean,
right there.
just right off the top of my head, that's where my gut goes, is that it's Ezra, because you've introduced the character by referencing Thrawn. So if Thrawn's still alive, so that means Ezra's still alive.
And it's a Filoni Favreau story.
Right.
Yep.
It would absolutely make sense that Ezra's the one who shows up.
I agree.
I haven't finished the video game Jedi Fallen Order yet.
Cal?
But there's the possibility that it could be the character from that game.
Cal.
Well, yeah, Cal Kestis.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the other candidate, Elliott. So I think it's 50. It's funny. 50% of me says it's going to be Ezra because one, it's got a heavy Filoni tie. Thrawn was mentioned. It fits right in with the timing.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. 30% of me says it's Cal. And I don't know. I haven't watched all the cutscenes from that game. 20% of me says it's a Jedi we don't even know of. Something from
totally possible.
Whole new name. And I would say that, which one would I favor? Hey, seeing Ezra would be cool. Like a grown Ezra who'd been lost and found again. That might be kind of cool. Maybe Grogu's the one that draws him back in so he can find out where the hell he's been.
That's true.
That would be awesome. But again, that runs the risk of overshadowing the story. This Mandalorian was supposed to be a standalone story. We're supposed to follow this one and not... I like the little tie-ins to what we know. But I also appreciate going somewhere where we've never been.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks that if we go back to Ezra, it kind of pulls us back into a Clone Wars Rebels thing. And I think there's something there that tells me they won't do that. That I think it will go on this little path here where we've got somebody new that we didn't know of. And I think that's where it might go. But again, because Filoni's name is attached to all of this, and because he does things so well, even when I don't want him to, that, Pete, I agree with you. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Ezra Bridger is the one that shows up and kind of...
I tell you, I wouldn't be shocked if Grogu makes the decision to not connect to the Force.
Yeah, of
and
course,
instead
option two.
To stay with Jin.
Or here's kind of my theory. There's the connection to Ezra, but it's going to find him and kind of converging on the Ahsoka Tano path with Grogu and Jin to both like Ezra's being held captive by Thrawn in some way, like when they went with the space whales, Thrawn somehow
it hurts to say that, doesn't it? It hurts to say that, especially when you know people
really does.
are going to eventually
No, it
be
feels-
listening to this.
No, you know what? Calling them the space whales is actually a throwback to the way things used to be. And actually, it kind of ties into everybody calling him Baby Yoda, right? We called things what we saw on screen when we were growing up.
Right.
So it was Walrus Man, it was Yak Face, right?
Yeah.
We didn't know Rhodians and
Hammerhead.
They were Hammerhead. They were Sand People. They were not Tusken Raiders, right? I know he was Walrus Man, but also you called him Butt Face Man, right? Because that's what his face looked like. Like you called him what you saw on screen.
Butt face, man. You're right. That's
So-
probably what I did call him. And the action figure even had a butt as a mouth. I mean, just amazing. Yep.
So calling them space whales, I think, is completely legitimate.
It is.
Actually,
it just,
you know what? That's a thought that I just had. What if there's also, I think, the possibility that Grogu reaches out to the Force and a Jedi doesn't show up, but instead the space whales show up and they take him.
That's true too.
That's how Ezra reach out to him.
Yeah, maybe they come get him and they light speed him to Ezra.
There you go.
maybe.
And then it continues because this is not the Odd Couple. This is not Mando and his baby. This is the Mandalorian. You know, so maybe after 2 seasons, that's the end of the Grogu arc, and we go off on another arc.
Which I'd be perfectly fine with, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know, Elliot, you kind of you got me sidetracked on the space whales. Grab him and take him to where Ezra's at, and so any viewers we've had have completely evaporated at this point because we said space whales. They all went away. I think that this is going to be really fascinating, but I don't think tomorrow's episode, unfortunately, as we followed all of these series throughout the years, we know that tomorrow is going to be one of those episodes. It's not going to progress to that. It'll progress, but we're not going to start stepping to the end of this season tomorrow. Right. You know, it's going to be one of those where it's like a stop. It's like a stop, a little side journey, and then we're going to get into it, I think, the following week, unfortunately, where we're going to start getting into the setup, and you got to factor in, where does Moff Gideon come in here? He's going to show up.
True.
And they're tracking Mando. They know where he's going. You saw that from the last episode where they're tracking that ship now.
We still have Bo-Katan with her crew. Yeah. There's still the theory that Sabine Wren is going to show up at some point. So, I mean,
where's Boba Fett?
Where's Boba Fett?
Yep, that's a good one. That's easy to forget, right? That happened in episode 1, and we were already like, so much shit has happened. Like, he's been washed out by... Here's the funny thing. Here's the ironic thing that's happened with us as Star Wars. All of us. Boba Fett's face showed up in episode 1 of season 2. We've all forgotten about it because we got a character called Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano, and nobody remembers Boba Fett from episode 1 now. Like, that got buried, right, in our psyche. And you're right. You guys are right to bring it up. Like, that whole thing could come back in a very big way. And you're like, oh, yeah, we forgot about Boba Fett. Showed his face in episode 1. We all ignored it. Oh, that's cool. He wasn't in the next one. He wasn't in the next one. He wasn't in the next one. We kind of moved on. And
then we got Bo-Katan.
One of the most iconic...
Ahsoka Tano and Thrawn.
Yeah, one of the most iconic figures going back to like 1980. And we're all enamored by Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano that we completely forget about. Boba Fett could potentially... he's gonna pop back up like a whack-a-mole game in a big way. And we've all been like, hey, Ahsoka Tano. Like, how great is that? But yeah, so this show is when they announced this show, it was going to be about Mandalorian. At the time, I admit, guys, and I think I've said this on one of our shows before. I'm like, I'm okay not having Mandalorian stuff anymore, right? We kind of got we got a heavy dose in the Clone Wars. We got a dose fit in Rebels. I had enough of it maybe in the prequel trilogy, seeing that, because we didn't really learn much about it. I was okay with it being left kind of a mystery. I got to tell you, though, I have enjoyed learning that, hey, look, there was a Mandalorian way that was very you think about religion, and there's a very there's a sect of this Mandalorian culture that's very like religious, that follow all doctrine. They don't cherry pick doctrine like maybe the ones that take their helmets off freely. Like there are some that like, man, we're following it in the purest way. And you think about religion kind of in the same way, and it's kind of a reflection of that. Like, and so I didn't expect to enjoy like learning about that or seeing it. So I was kind of done with seeing the Mandalorian armor. Okay, cool. They're mysterious creatures, and they never miss their target, and they know how to ride anything they jump on. But then they give us this series where you learn in the first couple episodes, Pete, that he's not perfect. He couldn't ride that damn beast at the beginning of episode 1. Like, he struggled.
It's true.
And he couldn't fly that jetpack when he first got it. Like, he wasn't perfect like we always thought they were. And so I have a new appreciation for that. I'm glad they went this direction. I wasn't when I heard about the announcement, but I've been more than thrilled with the whole series.
Yep. Well, if there's any indication, if the internet is right, we're looking to a short episode tomorrow, saying 32 minutes.
Ooh. That's disappointing.
Filler.
Yep. We're getting more spiders.
Or incredibly action-packed.
Or
That's true, too.
Astromech episode. Maybe Bieber Gascon will show up. Remember that little frog guy from Clone Wars?
Yep.
Or some pod racing. Who knows?
Certainly. All right. Unless you guys have anything more to add, we'll look forward to watching tomorrow's episode and then continuing this conversation next week. Hopefully this episode gives us something and not just hey, I saved a village from an ATST.
An AT-AT would be far more impressive.
That would be.
I know. I almost screwed up, but I corrected myself.
All
You know
right.
what's funny about that episode, real quick? I've seen, we can't take down this ATST. You're going to have to lose your village. And then you remember back to Return of the Jedi, they just tossed a couple logs at them and took them out.
That's true.
In various ways, right?
Yeah.
Smash
Smashed
logs
them.
together, smashes the head.
Yep.
Or a bunch of logs
then
underneath
just
them
rolled
causes it to
Like
lose its...
like in a cartoon when you roll marbles under the character and he
Yeah.
slips and falls. So
That's right.
Yeah.
But if you're not a veteran of the Forest Moon of Endor, you don't know those battle tactics. So,
Right.
although
those Ewoks figured it out in like 30 minutes.
they did, and Kara was a drop soul, although she arrived after the battle, didn't she?
That's true.
Yep.
So she might not have gotten the 411 from Captain Rex. He may have already left. He may have already gone off world.
He didn't know where he was at.
No, he didn't.
He
He'll be back.
was on medication at that point.
You think?
Yeah, they aged twice as fast, man. He was like 90
That's
years
true.
old during the Battle of Endor.
Yeah, I know, but Boba Fett didn't look too bad.
Wasn't he an unaltered clone?
No.
Yeah.
Just the
No,
first.
I thought he was.
No, because he says his son is one of the unaltered clones.
Unaltered, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Pete, do we do this again? Do we do the same
No, we don't need to do it again.
I don't
They
think
know.
so either. All right. Until next week, if you only enjoy baseball, you missed out. Go back and watch it. There's a pause in the middle. Don't watch the back half if you're a communist. Other than that, we'll see you all. See you all next week. We love you all so much. Bye bye, everyone.